Welcome to Kibbe on Liberty. Okay, Lou, I have to ask you, what are you drinking? I need to know this.
This is Athletic Greens AG1, as promoted on, I believe, Joe Rogan Experience, the Glenn Show with Glenn Lowry, and all the super duper podcasts. So hopefully, on Liberty will be the next showcase of AG1.
So we're hoping just by mentioning it, we will get a multi-million-dollar contract.
That would be great. I wish I had like a promotion, a promo offer to give, but it's all down the road. In the meantime, as a 41-year-old male, I'm doing all I can to stay alive as long as I can, and that
Yeah.
includes a daily dose of Athletic Greens.
Well, this will probably undermine my ability to get that contract, but it looks kind of disgusting.
It takes a while to get used to as well. It's not pretty to look at, and at first gulp, it's not that pretty to taste. But what you do is you remind yourself, this is going to make me live forever.
Yeah.
And I'm right now I'm going to get like a cease and desist from AG1 because they're like, there's no, we don't claim that you're going to live forever. No, guys, you're claiming I'm going to live forever. That's why I'm putting up with this stuff going in my mouth.
Well, it explains something, and we can't. We want to talk about the new series that you're producing for Free the People, but it explains something that I was mystified by, and we can't give anything away. But there is a forthcoming skit, perhaps the skit to end all skits, where you got like super jacked. Like I was amazed, like it was almost Wolverine level jacked, and I didn't know how you did it so quickly. But maybe it's the greens.
Yeah, it's the greens, and it's just incredible technology we have now. Like you could just put me in front of the camera and I become just insanely jacked.
Yeah.
After hours and hours of tedious after effects. But it's look, uh I love to transform for projects, and
Yeah.
that's something that I'm willing to do.
Yeah, you and Hugh Jackman. I mean, sometimes those two names just flow one after the other.
Yeah, Lou Jackman a lot of times. People
People just
just
get you too confused.
yeah, it becomes annoying after a while.
So, why is comedy murder?
Why is comedy murder?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think it has to do with that we were looking for a title for the series, and I was like, well, on the cover of my book, I do a parody of or a send up homage to the Smiths album "Meat Is Murder," in which case I just changed meat for comedy, and I was like, does that work? Yeah, maybe that works. So, um, Occam's razor, comedy is murder, because it was the easiest thing to go with. And I think it kind of sounds cool. It sounds interesting. It's something that I think the kids will like.
Well, I do like I always sort of read like deeper meaning into things that perhaps had no meaning, and you were just goofing around with the Smiths. But there there is likely someone out there who believes that meat is murder, who literally believes that comedy is murder because words are violence, and saying something mean to somebody else, or saying something that you didn't even think was mean, or God forbid, telling a joke might in fact be a form of violence in the minds of the very activists that perhaps you're making fun of.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've seen arguments, probably along the lines of what do they call it, like stochastic terrorism. This idea that if you have in particular, a public figure with a large reach, and they target rhetorically, or I don't even know if it's rhetorically. If they target a person or a group of people with criticism or mockery, then there's a chance that somebody could see that and respond violently to it. Um, and if you're talking about like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon just taken to the millionth possible degree, the idea that if someone were to hear a joke, that could then incite any horrendous action. I think Bill Burr said it best. The idea that, if somebody comes into one of his shows and he tells a joke, uh, that person was going to commit a violent act, regardless of what that joke was. So no, I hear what you're saying, that you know, in the world that we're in now, I think there's so much, so many attempts to just brush off any personal responsibility for one's actions, that someone could possibly try to use this in a court of law, if we still have courts.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Maybe not so much, but like you're reminding me, I'm the old man in this conversation, and I'm old enough to remember when Frank Zappa testified before Tipper Gore's PMRC, wanting to ban really dangerous rock music like Prince's Purple Rain, which every time I listen to it, I get like violently angry, and I think horrible things, and she wanted to ban that, and it sounds ridiculous today, but I feel like the thought police have shifted away from music, for reasons I can't understand, to comedians, and this is like a real thing where somehow comedy has become the last safe space for free speech, where if it's parody, you're allowed to say things that used to be normal things to say, and now it's considered provocative and even dangerous.
Yeah, well, first off, I think it's so important, it's crucial to remind people that Tipper Gore, wife of Al Gore, right? Al Gore isn't cool. I know that what happened, in like the early 2000s, when he was running against, George W. Bush, before 2000, so, 1999 or whatever, he was such a terrible public speaker that he underwent training and became really good, like, as a public speaker, and had like a flair, and tricked people into believing that he was cool. But we need to remind people, like, no, he and his wife wanted to, put a, advisory sticker on, like you said, Frank Zappa's work, just to, name one of the many artists, even on Frank Zappa's work that didn't have lyrics, that was just instrumental.
Yeah.
So, I think, thanks to, South Park with, Man, Bear, Pig, and, hopefully with this show, Al Gore will, continue, will not be able to, just clean the image, that, and trick people into thinking that he's cool, because he's not. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, I don't know if it's the last, holdout when it comes to free speech, but comedy, especially today, is in such a perfect place to be able to really go all out, I think, when it comes to free speech. And that's why I was so excited to work with Free the People on this project in particular, because it's something where you have the opportunity to take on a lot of important issues, especially from a point of view that I think a lot of comedians, just aren't operating from, which is a libertarian bent, which I think is exciting.
I guess we first started talking about this a couple years ago. I saw you do stand up at Young Americans for Liberty, and then we talked some more at Porkfest. But yeah, the idea, for us was, we want to reach people outside of our libertarian bubble, and as much as it upsets me, there's only so many people that have read Herbert Spencer and Murray Rothbard, and I judge people that haven't read those guys, but
I haven't. I don't know how I got into this.
I'm looking at your bookshelf, and I don't even want to know what's on there, because it's probably very disturbing stuff. But obviously the idea is, like, most people don't read those books, and that's okay. They're normal, and I'm not. But normal people like to laugh, and they particularly like to laugh. I was reading a story about John Cleese, where he was defending his decision not to censor the new theater adaptation of Life of Brian, and he made the argument better than I could. But there's something about comedy that breaks down barriers, and comedians who will talk about things that are considered culturally taboo somehow make it okay for people to have those conversations after the act when they go to the bar and they're sort of arguing things out, trying to figure things out, things that they were uncomfortable about. And I think that to me is how it's sort of the glue that holds civil society together, is like we're allowed to talk to each other, we're allowed to argue about stuff, and we don't have to get permanently separated. I'll never talk to you again every time we disagree about politics or anything else. And that's why I find cancel culture so corrosive, is it breaks down that ability for people to learn how to tolerate each other, even if their first reaction is, I don't like you.
What part of Life of Brian were they trying to do away
There's
with?
the part that they want to cancel is the skit in the middle of it where the one guy decides that he wants to be a woman.
Oh, come on.
And yeah, can you imagine? It's 1979 is fascinating. I used to say that sci-fi predicts the future, but I think that perhaps comedy predicts the future. And there's this part where there's a guy sitting there and says, "I want to be a woman," and the John Cleese character says, "But you're not a woman." And said, "Why do you want to be a woman?" And he says, "Because I want to have a baby." And John Cleese says, incredulous, "But you can't have a baby. You're a man." And this, of course, is political. I probably just got us struck on YouTube just by retelling that joke. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. If you're watching this show, you're probably wondering, is there a way I can support liberty and improve my life at the same time? Well, there is. Pack Crest Botanicals is a libertarian-owned company that makes botanical CBD products. I started using CBD oil to help me when I'm trying to sleep, and my 3 annoying cats won't leave me alone. Now I can just ignore them for a solid 8 hours and wake up feeling great. Not only are they run by our friends in the Liberty Movement, Pack Crest Botanicals also uses high-quality organic ingredients in everything they make. They sell tinctures, edibles, topicals, and botanical vapes. CBD oil can help with pain, insomnia, inflammation, anxiety, stress, arthritis, and more. Use discount code FREETHEPEOPLE to save 25% of your order, and if you select Free the People as your charitable organization at checkout, a portion of your purchase will be donated to us to help fight for freedom.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, the Life of Brian in particular, because, there was such an uproar, at the time from the church. I don't know if there was like an official, dictum or, from the Pope himself, but I know that it angered a lot of believers. So, in that sense, it is interesting to see, what changes will be made to adapt to, the current, culture, where I guess, now it's still okay to goof on, Christianity, the crucifixion, and all that. But, that little skit that you just, that you just mentioned is too far. It, wouldn't be right now. So, I think, I think that, it obviously does a disservice to the work, because, there's something to be said about something that was made over 40 years ago that still holds up. Like, that scene is still funny, and it's actually rather prescient too. Like, just seeing like where we are today and the arguments that we're having. But also, I think that that piece is also locked into a specific time in history that I think you do a disservice not to produce it as is.
Yeah, can you imagine going through and censoring all the things that are currently offensive from Monty Python and having anything left to laugh at?
Right. No, really, it's a really good point.
I once by accident I bought an Eminem album at a Walmart, and they took all the fucks and shits out of it, and there was nothing left. And I took it back. I'm like, this is broken. You took all the music out of this thing that I wanted to listen to.
Well, I think there is something too. When we talk about like, woke stuff or what is wokeism and the anti-woke and the pushback against that. I feel like so much stuff ends up getting thrown into that same label of being woke. Like for example, I know one of the big things is when it comes to casting, when it comes to like diversity casting. Some people seem to think that only mermaids should be Norwegian or whatever the hell, or whatever the hell it is. And I think that takes away from from a lot of the important conversations, because like for example, I think one of the best plays that I've ever seen was an updated version of The Tempest, William Shakespeare's The Tempest, that takes place in a women's prison. So every character, Prospero to Caliban and all that, are all women, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. And I feel like the easy thing would be for someone to be like, oh, they're all women, so this must be woke. It's like no, it's finding an interesting way to tell this story with really incredible actresses, and keeping the work, staying tied to the work itself. And with something like the Life of Brian, it'd be interesting to see what they're doing like with the casting. I wish that we were having that conversation, like, oh, how would so and so be as this person, rather than just cutting stuff out and using the tool of a censor.
By the way, my sound guy told me to tell everybody listening to this that there is major construction. The District of Columbia is replacing all of the lead water pipes that I've been drinking out of for the last 20 years with non-lead water pipes, which may say something. I may need to drink more of those super greens that Lou is drinking.
I'm not getting any money every time someone drinks one of these. Getting $0.
This is probably a slightly clumsy transition, but I want to tee up the first short skit that we produced together under the banner of Comedy is Murder, and this one's called Misgendering a Murderer. And I will warn you, even though I dropped 2 of the 7 words that George Carlin once told us you're not allowed to say on TV, I will warn you that if family is listening, Lou is a bit of a dirty bird, and there's all sorts of swear words in this, so earmuffs. Check it out.
Did you read the file?
Let's go. Who got you, son of a bitch? 6 women. 6.
Do you own a black Toyota Sienna, Miss Trapper?
Yes.
Is this your car, ma'am?
Why do you keep referring to him like he's a woman?
I thought you said you read the
I've
file.
been tracking this guy for 9 months. I don't need to read it.
The suspect identifies as a she.
What? Is this how you got into the women's shelter? You said you were a woman.
I am a woman.
And a woman's shelter has to accept women.
Nothing in here changes what you did to her. Or her. Or her. Oh, you're a real tough guy, huh?
Woman. Gal. Tough gal.
Tell me something, how did it feel? Did it feel good?
What? When I fell from heaven?
You didn't fall from heaven. You fell from hell.
That doesn't make any sense.
She's right, Jim. That didn't make any sense.
Shut up.
Miss Trapper, where were you on the night of April 17th?
At home, washing my hair.
All night?
You know how us girls are.
Checks out.
We have a witness that puts him at home on the 17th.
No, I'm just saying she's right. Girls love to wash their hair.
That is probably the dumbest stereotype. This shit affects real people. But you're just a psycho looking for a way out. Well, it is not gonna work. You're gonna fucking fry.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? Misogynist, I bet I look like every gal that's ever broken your heart.
Fucking killing myself!
Jim, cool it.
Get off of me!
You gotta play this by the book, man. You gotta respect her journey.
What is going on with you?
My daughter showed me a video on TikTok. It was about gender.
Is your daughter transgender?
No, but she's an ally.
What's an ally?
I don't know, but I have to be an ally. It's a TikTok thing.
What the fuck does that have to do with
I
this?
have to be an ally if she's ever gonna want to come over to hang out at my house, rather than her mother forcing her to come over. Will you do a TikTok video with me?
No, this guy is not even trans. He's just saying that to manipulate the system.
Is that true?
No.
Well, now I don't know what to believe.
Wanna know what I believe? I believe you identified as a woman to get into the women's shelter to overpower them. Now you want to do the same in prison. How am I doing?
I think you're scared.
Of what?
Seeing a woman stand up for herself.
Other room. Now. What are you two idiots doing?
We just got started, Chief. We'll get the confession.
DNA results came back positive for a man. Why are you wasting your time with a woman?
That is a man.
Then what am I looking at here? Harvey Tripper, female. Female semen. Female semen, not male semen.
Women don't have...
You got 10 minutes, and then you cut her loose.
Chief.
Better yet, get her an escort home. There's a serial killer out there. We don't want her to become his next victim.
Did you show him the fucking TikTok video?
Yeah.
Okay, Lou, what on earth were you thinking with this one?
Oh man, what was I thinking? Well, for one, thank you for producing it with me. I think that that's huge, and I can't say enough about group organizations like yourself who are willing to take a chance on these ideas and putting them out there. I think the original idea that where it came from was there was an article in the New York Times that came out, I think it was probably like a year ago, and it was about, I think, an 83-year-old woman who had murdered a woman like decades ago, and then went to a women's shelter and ultimately ended up murdering another woman. And if you read the article, what becomes really clear is that the New York Times is doing all that it can not to misgender this murderer who is a biological male. This man murdered two women. This man said that he was a she in order to get into a woman's shelter. And when I was reading it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. It just seemed like it seemed like somebody was messing around. There was some satire going on, and as I started to think about ways to approach a topic like this, I was thinking like is it the new rule now? Like if a man murders a woman, he has to become that woman. Is there like a ratio that we need to keep? And then ultimately, I was thinking like, oh, what if what would a scene look like of an interrogation where you have instead of good cop, bad cop, you have ally cop and transphobic cop, and just see what happens there. And and I'm happy the way that it turned out, and the responses that we've been getting to it are really really good too.
Yeah, so you got what I think was your first Joe Rogan retweet on this bad boy, right?
Yeah. I shared it on my my personal Twitter at the Lou Perez. You guys can go and follow me there. And I was checking my mentions, my notifications. I was like, wow, getting a lot of notifications here. And then somebody had left a comment, and when I looked at the comment, it said that not only was the comment to at the Lou Perez, it was also at Joe Rogan. And I was like, no way, wait, hold on. And then I clicked on Joe Rogan and Rogan's profile, and it turns out that he had he had shared it, which was, just such a cool thing for me. I've been a huge fan of Rogan's for, over 10 years. To know that he watched something that, that I was a part of, that I had made with you guys, and then shared it. I mean, that was just, that was just awesome.
Yeah, it turns out, no offense to you, but he seems to have bigger reach than you do, even.
Yeah.
If you can imagine.
Yeah,
so
the kid's done well. He's done well for himself.
And he was, he's sort of a lowly comedian who just started doing things like, I find it interesting, and I think the fact that he's a comedian is relevant to his insistence that open-mindedness and honest conversations and free speech are still hopefully American values. But I pulled it up right before we went live, and 222,000 views of the video on Twitter, and like 500,000 views of the tweet itself. I'm like, that's I guess you come close to that with your other tweets, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good for sure. And I mean, it's I'm sure a lot of the people listening are already familiar with the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's been doing having some really great conversations with legendary comedians as well. And there was one that he recently had with Stephen Wright, the Boston comedian, and it is really cool to hear two incredibly successful comedians talk shop, and also talk about where they came from and how they got into comedy and their approach to it. And I think ultimately for any comedian, it's all about, the first thing you have to do is you just have to get up there. You have to get up and try it. You have to put your stuff out there, and you have to be ready to fail. So, that in the 20 plus years that I've been doing comedy, it's been a lot of that as well. Taking risks and seeing how stuff will do, and when something hits, it really almost, when something hits, it washes away for a little while all the stuff that didn't, and then all the stuff that didn't kind of comes back like a nice, like the tide, and it's a reminder, okay, not everything's a hit. And then you want to ride that next wave to get something that really lands again.
Have you ever thought about using CBD oil? You haven't? Well, think about it now. Are you thinking about it? Good, because now there's a way to support freedom and improve your life at the same time. Packrest Botanicals is a libertarian-owned company that makes a wide variety of botanical CBD products. I use CBD oil to soothe the sore muscles I get from constantly fighting the man here in Washington, D.C. It's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it. Packrest Botanicals uses high-quality organic ingredients in everything they make. And as libertarians, you won't have to worry about them hurting people or taking their stuff. They sell tinctures, edibles, topicals, and botanical vapes. CBD oil can help with pain, insomnia, inflammation, anxiety, stress, arthritis, and more. Use the discount code FREETHEPEOPLE to save 25% of your order, and if you select Free the People as your charitable organization at checkout, a portion of your purchase will be donated to help us keep fighting for freedom. That awkward silence that seems to go on forever when you deliver your closing, this one's going to kill joke, and nothing. I know this has never happened to you, but you've seen it happen to other people.
I've heard about it. I've never witnessed it. Heard about it for sure.
So I don't think I told you this, but one of my favorite compliments of Misgendering a Murderer came from someone who had just discovered Free the People, and she was checking out a bunch of stuff that we were doing on lockdowns and all that stuff, and it was a friend of hers that convinced her to watch Misgendering a Murderer, because her initial reaction was, I don't want to watch that. It's too depressing. It's too upsetting. Everybody is so angry to the point of of irrationality on this subject. I don't want to watch it. And her friend said, no, this is funny as hell. You got to watch it. And I think, and once she watched it, she's like, this is a great way to tackle an insanely difficult issue to talk about in a way that ultimately is quite reasonable.
Well, that's a nice compliment right there. And also, I just sort of see it as like, this stuff is out there, it's happening. How don't you comment on it? It's like I happen to be a comedian. So my approach to, taking on these, what's happening in the world is, doing it with comedy. And, the subject matter, here's something where, journalists are talking about it, pundits are talking about it, activists are talking about it. So yeah, I feel like, if I wasn't doing that, I think there would be something, it would just seem like there was something wrong.
And the other compliment was much shorter, but a trans woman that I've had on my show, who I've become friends with, Sarah Higdon. You may know her as well, but I actually Terry sent it to her before we went live, and her only comment was, "Male semen, LMFAO." Did I get that right?
Yeah, was it? I think it might have been the female semen part.
I screwed it up. I see. This is why I'm not a comedian.
We'll take that back. No, Sarah's great. I was really happy to have her on my podcast as well. And Sarah's very very open, very interesting, and willing to have these conversations. And also, and Sarah's trans, and be willing to answer your questions about what's it like being trans, what's going on here. I think she might be I talked to her about does she feel like she's always kind of like the spokesperson for any time that a trans issue comes up, because the fact that she's trans. But I think she handles it really well, and she enjoyed the video, so I'm happy to hear that.
But her point on my show was that this sort of, whatever you called this trans radicalism that says that men can have babies and men biological men can compete with biological women in women's sports, that they're sort of ruining it for her, and she's dealing with gender dysphoria, and she's trying to live her life, but she doesn't want to be associated with this radicalism. And that's like, there's a reasonable live and let live where adults should be allowed to make adult decisions, and then there's this other thing, and that's worth calling out. It's worth having fun with.
Yeah, and I talked to her about a number of things on the show, and a recent video that I put out where I was playing another character, a different character, had to do with trans athletes in sports, and it's a very controversial subject, and something that they always that's often talked about is if you allow trans athletes into sports, they're going to dominate women's sports, but they never talk about them dominating men's sports. So I make an argument that that's truly the reason why they don't want trans athletes in sports, because they will dominate men's sports. Trans men will just destroy, LeBron James and John Jones and all the top male athletes out there, and they don't want to be humiliated. So the powers that be are trying to, keep them out of it.
Yeah, that explains a lot when you think about it.
It's a big grand conspiracy. So these, gigantic alpha males don't have to lose, to a trans man. So
yes. Speaking, watch another clumsy transition here. Speaking of very difficult issues that we're not allowed to talk about reasonably with the other side. One of them is gun rights and your ability to defend yourself, and whether or not people should be allowed to do that. So let's watch the second video, and I don't even know what it's called. Do you know what the title of this video is?
Would you give up your penis for a gun?
Check it out.
It was after the home invasion that I thought it's time
It's time to get a gun for home protection.
But we're still uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, I want to buy a gun, but I don't want to give up my big dick.
It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as gunpowder. Guns are not for self-defense or protection of private property, but for men to compensate for their small penises. But in a world where only small cocks are packing heat, what are the well-endowed to do? I came to this quiet town in suburban New Jersey to sit down with George Johansson, a husband, father, and well-hung homeowner.
We never felt unsafe. My husband's penis is massive. How could anyone do us harm?
But it turns out even the most massive of schlong owners can be victimized.
We were in bed when I heard the sound of glass breaking.
And you sleep naked?
Yeah.
Were you aroused?
No. But by the time I ran downstairs to see what was happening, I was fully erect.
So you confronted the burglars with your erection?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing?
And then what happened?
They beat the shit out of me.
What are you doing?
So they didn't back off at the sight of your enormous wang?
No.
The first time I saw George's penis, I screamed. I was so scared of it.
Did you try to hit them with it, George?
Of course.
And?
They just
punched your massive dong out of the way.
It's like it wasn't even there.
I imagine it's very hard to subdue a home intruder with just your penis.
Yeah, it's not like what you see in the movies.
What movies are you watching?
In the wake of the attack, George attempted to purchase a gun, but there was a problem.
I thought I can get around the background check, but anyone who's ever tried to buy a gun knows that they measure your cock right there on the spot. It's not what the founding fathers had in mind.
Weeks after we first met, George Johansson decided to go under the knife in order to exercise his Second Amendment rights. George's penis reduction surgery went so well that he was legally allowed to purchase not one, but 2 rifles. But was his sacrifice worth it?
Do I miss my big penis? Yes. Does my wife miss my big penis?
Yes.
Do our kids miss my big penis?
Yes.
But what's most important is that we're safe and our home is protected. Right?
Okay.
Mr. Johansson, all the ultrasound imagery looks great. Have you had surgery before?
I've never had surgery, but I've had cavities filled.
Oh, it's very similar. So let's take a look at your choices.
The guns look good, but the penises look pretty small.
Well, I think you'd get used to it. Well, maybe you start with the gun. Which of the guns looks more like what you had in mind?
They've never shot before.
Never shot a gun before. I think we've come to a conclusion.
So I guess my first question, and I forgot again to warn people that this was not 100% family friendly, and neither will be the first question that I'm going to ask you. But where do you buy a rubber penis that big?
Oh, that's all you guys. Free the People have just some of the most incredible staff members who if you need like a 14-inch prosthetic penis, they know where to get it, or they already had it, and they've been finally, given the okay to use it. So thank you guys for being so willing to share your member with the viewers out there.
I won't name whose 14-inch rubber penis that was, but his name is Matt, and not Kibbe, by the way. It's a different Matt.
There's like 30 Matts that
I know, everybody's named Matt at Free the People.
I feel like you do that for security purposes, the way like a dictator has body doubles.
Yeah.
Like you just have a ton of Matts around.
Right.
You. Just
I mean, one of them's my taster, but the skinnier one, he's actually a very dangerous person, so he's sort of my bodyguard.
I love how you have a taster and then one of the guys has a 14-inch dildo. Awesome.
I don't know how you follow up that sentence, but But like a classic trope, obviously, if people don't get the joke, is that people on the left are constantly accusing men who want to buy guns with having small penises. Kind of the same accusation if you go out and buy a Jaguar, like a real Jaguar, not the car. But was there any particular inspiration for this, or just that trope that you hear again and again?
I think it's that. Yeah, I think it's that trope that you hear again and again. And yeah, I had a like a bit in one of my stand up, a stand up bit just about the idea of a gun for home defense just seems like it makes sense, because even if you have a gigantic penis, it's really hard to subdue a home intruder with that. So it's like based on like that idea. So okay, what if we build a world around that where we actually where it's like the only people who have guns have tiny penises. So everyone with a huge penis, they don't have a gun, and they need to make that that Faustian bargain to get a gun. They can get the gun, but they lose their manhood in the process.
But it's just like getting a filling, apparently.
Right. Yeah. The scene at the end, we didn't have it written out, but the actor who plays the doctor, Rob McCaskill, is just such a great actor that we were like, oh, let's just play around and do some do some improv, and that's where that line came about. He asked me if I'd ever had surgery before. I said no, but I've had some cavities filled. He's like, oh, same thing. Yeah, just like that. Yeah. Removing inches from your penis, just like getting a cavity filled.
You know what's funny about the trope is that, like, Terry and I, we're libertarians, so we've always been Second Amendment guys, and we've always believed in the right to home defense, but we never owned guns. And in a strange way, in 2016, I was inspired to finally get a gun in the District of Columbia, which is a very difficult thing to do. To own a handgun, you have to go through all sorts of paperwork and training, and happily there's been Supreme Court cases that now allow us to do that. But I was reading a story about the mass shooting in Paris at a concert. The Eagles of death metal were playing a show. You maybe remember this at the Bataclan Theater. And I realized that, I live on Capitol Hill, and there's all sorts of strange things. There's not just crime, but all sorts of strange things that happen on Capitol Hill. And I felt like, I didn't use these words at the time, but I felt like I wasn't being man enough for not taking the personal responsibility to protect my family and arguably even my community should things go sideways. So I decided it was a responsibility to get a gun, and that I was sort of free riding on other people that had taken that responsibility. So in some ways, I would argue in reality, if you're willing to do the training and take the responsibility, it's a manly thing to do. Like it's part of that responsibility, and that probably makes me old-fashioned, but that's why I did it.
And something too. I had Phil Labonte from All That Remains on my podcast a while back, and Phil is a very outspoken gun rights activist and owner and all that. And something that we talked about was, when you have a gun, it's obviously a tool, but it's an incredibly heavy tool. And I don't mean heavy as in weight, but the gravity of what you're holding. You are holding something that can preserve life by taking life, and it's a responsibility that unfortunately every gun owner that I know takes incredibly seriously. When it comes to, like, if you want, like, gun owners know the rules when it comes to, like, traveling to other states with their firearms. Gun owners are up on the paperwork that you need and all that. Every gun owner that I know trains, frequently. It's a regular exercise for them. And it's something that I think, like you point out, it's an incredible, responsibility and a duty, to a great extent. And the thing is, you don't often hear about that side of of guns. You don't hear about those gun owners. It's always about, I don't know, some morons like, I don't know, shooting guns up in the air, or having bringing their guns to a club without a holster and it falling down, and I think it's important. It's a thing where where we're able to make a a sketch comedy video, calling out one aspect of the I don't know if it's miss, diss, or what kind of information about gun ownership, but then also take the opportunity to have a serious discussion about what it actually entails.
I still struggle with this cognitive dissonance between people primarily on the left who want all guns confiscated and want to defund the police because they target people of color at the same time. And I don't know what happens when only the police have guns or only the government has guns, and you still have these systemic racism things that they argue are happening. I don't get it. It's an emotional reaction. There's no logic to it.
Oh yeah, or what something that you'll often hear is if you want to start to see gun regulation, watch black people start buying guns, and then the Republicans in particular will start to want to regulate guns. But if you look at what happened over the past, the past 5 years, gun ownership among, black Americans has been increasing more and more each year, which I think is great, right?
Yeah.
But while the black gun ownership has been increasing, which political party has been calling for gun regulations? The Democrats. So it's like, well, that just breaks down that whole argument that you have there. And I'm not saying this, I'm not a fan of, Republicans, but it's something where, a lot of these cliches, I just don't they just don't hold up. And I think they're, just perfect targets for mockery.
So I think you're coming to Freedom Fest this year. You're featured at Punching Up, which is I don't know if this is the first year they've done it, but they're having like comedy night, right?
Yeah, this is the second year in a row they're doing the Punching Up Comedy Festival. So last year was the first one in Vegas. We did one show, and then this time around there's going to be two shows. So there's a 7 p.m. clean show, which I guess you could bring your family to. And then
I noticed you didn't make the cut for the clean show.
I did not make the cut. So I get to join Camilla Cleese and Doug Stanhope. Doug Stanhope is headlining, and of course Stanhope is headlining the Dirty Show. There's no way you get the guy on a clean show. Although I'm sure you could easily do that too.
And you met. I only know this because I saw the picture online, but you met John Cleese last year.
I did. Yeah, I was on a panel discussion with his daughter Camilla, who's a comedian. Like I said, she's going to be on this show too. So I was on a panel with her, and I tell you, it was a little bit of a trip when I looked out into the audience, and there's, comedy royalty, John Cleese looking, there, and actually being, quite interested in the conversation that was going on here. And then afterward, I got to meet, I think it was after our show. I forget if it was after our show or after the panel. But I got to meet John Cleese, who's incredibly tall, which is something that offends me very much. I'm 5'10". Yeah. I don't trust anybody over 6 feet. And who knows what they can do at any moment. He's a very tall man. And he was very nice, very down to earth, very approachable, which is wild. And he actually had some nice things to say about what I said, and it was at a point where I was kind of like, this is too much. I can't, I can't take this. I shouldn't be here right now. He shouldn't be speaking to me. This shouldn't be happening.
Well, it's kind of fascinating, and we can wrap up on this, but John Cleese, by any measure, I follow him on Twitter, and he's hardly what would be considered a conservative or a right winger in any sense, but he's such a radical free speech guy that I think a lot of people that thought that they were on the left, and even they would lump us libertarians on the right, that they're sort of rethinking the world. And the fact that John Cleese would be at Freedom Fest was fascinating to me. But I think the more I think about it, it makes perfect sense, because, at some point we're going to see like Bill Maher at Freedom Fest, and it'll be like it'll be cognitive dissonance for me. I won't know what's going on, but they have a number of I always say his name wrong, but like Matt Taibbi, is that how you say it?
Matt Taibbi.
Taibbi and all of these Twitter file type guys, very, very left of center guys who understand that government censorship of speech is a dangerous thing, which used to be well understood, and you have all this cool stuff happening where honest liberals are reconsidering where they belong, and censorship. You're talking about censorship on the right in the 1980s with, and I would actually put Tipper Gore sort of on the right in a weird way, and the protests around Life of Brian. Now the new Puritans are the speech police on the left, and it's a weird thing that's happening. But I think out of this chaos might come something kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Matt Taibbi a little while back, I think it's available on his Substack. He basically dissected like sort of that portion of the left that you're talking about. The woke scolds, joyless, humorless. That is just so alien from the liberals of the 90s, the ones that I grew up watching and loving and very much thought myself a part of. So it's definitely worth reading. And I think something that's happened too, like the left right labels I think have just been falling away and crumbling because they don't really make sense anymore. I mean, I look at like Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, Ann Coulter. Like these are very different people who I got to tell you, over the past few years, I've really enjoyed listening to, even when I disagree with them. And I think there's something to, finding a, I don't know, friendship or camaraderie with people who you can disagree with because you agree on some important stuff. And ultimately, if you disagree with them, they're not going to try to get you fired. I think that's a pretty good thing. I'm sure, if I could have an argument with any of those people. They're not going to be, trying to find my employer and say, you know what, can't believe that, you have this person, working for you. And I think that goes a long way as a culture.
So we will be at Freedom Fest. We'll be at Anthem as well. We're showing a couple films that have been accepted to the film festival, and we'll be doing various talks as well. But we'll be there for comedy night to see if you face that moment of awkward silence, because those rooms are really big too. So the silence like bangs around the room. It's really awful.
And I know that if that comes to pass, I will look out and you will just be there smiling, and your hands just going like this, enjoying every minute, enjoying every second of it.
And if you're listening to this, you have to watch the new Lou Perez series, Comedy is Murder, at Free the People on our YouTube page. You can find it at freethepeople.org. You can find it if you follow Joe Rogan, because he's retweeting the shit out of that stuff. So all the best places, and it doesn't totally translate if you're just listening. And we got a lot more to come, don't we?
We sure do. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Thanks for watching. If you liked the conversation, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and also ring the bell for notifications. And if you want to know more about Free the People, go to freethepeople.org.